Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're gonna hopefully be answering the question, will we get a second batch of Hunter x Hunter manga? If you guys have been keeping up, we have been getting chapters, and unfortunately, this batch is very close to ending. We have about 2 chapters left to release, and the release dates for those are on August 29th, we'll get chapter 419, and then on September 5th, we'll get chapter 420, which is obviously Loser's favorite chapter. But today, or literally tonight, right, I got a notification on my phone that Togashi just gave an update on the manga, and this was one of the good ones because it's a manuscript completion, meaning he's sending a chapter over to Shonen Jump and it's complete. And now, if we look at the chapters that aren't going to be in this batch and the ones that are sent to Jump, we have a total of 6. So that's a hefty amount right there, right? And some people theorize that maybe it won't get put to an end, like, since we have 6 chapters out, he'll just continue with that, right? Jump will just go from 420 to 421. I don't think that's going to be the case because they kind of have been doing this in batches, which isn't really, that bad, right? It's more formal, I would say, right? Um, because if we do get a 10 batch, it goes together with the release of the actual volumes, right? So with the 10 chapters we just got, we're going to get the release of volume 40, you know, hopefully sooner than we did with volume 39, but that's how they do this, right? Because they're doing this from a money standpoint. They want to make money with this manga. They don't want to just sit on it. So, like I said, we have 6 chapters completely done so far with this current update. And then chapters 427 and 428 are almost complete. The background and the dialogue is basically complete. So Togashi really just needs to put the finishing touches, go over things, and then he could send them to Jump. And that should be coming up in the next 2 weeks of the manga that we got. We should expect that to be done relatively soon, even though if you look here, August 11th was the last update. So we're at the end of the month now. So we'll have to see because we can't predict Togashi's moves. He's unpredictable. You can't say, all right, well, we just got an update, 2 days in a row. What's going to happen on the third day? He's not going to post for a month. That's probably what's going to happen. So you absolutely can't predict anything that Togashi's going to do, but you can take the information he's giving you and try to guess when we'll get it, and that's what I'm doing here, right? So moving on, we have chapter 429 to 430 being worked on. That was one of the last updates he gave us, is that chapter 433 is in development, and that's going into the next batch after this one. So 3 batches could be coming, just like back to back to back. And maybe not this year we'll get that 3rd batch, obviously. It is a good prediction, I would say, that we're going to get the next batch maybe after a 2-month break, right? Which for us fans, that's like nothing because, at the speed we're going, right? I think he's got around 4 chapters left to just finish, and especially if 427 and 428 are complete already, right? Almost done. He just needs to go over them. That gives him, all the focus he needs on those 2 chapters. And then we should be able to get an announcement that more chapters are coming around maybe December or November, right? And then he has plenty of time to work on the next batch. And now, story-wise, right, what I think is going to happen with the story is, in this batch, surprisingly, we put a lot of focus on the actual succession war. Things are going down. We're focusing on the princes, and in this next batch we're going to get is most likely going to be going into the Phantom Troop and the Mafia and people like that, right? I don't think we're going to see Gon and Killua for a while. Maybe towards the end of the next batch, we might see something from that one thing with Kite. Um, but if we look here on this manuscript we just got, we could see a shoe, and I know that's hard to predict. Maybe that is Prince Kacho or Fugetsu's shoe. I'm not sure, but it just seems like it would be, right? They wear those shoes. So maybe we'll get more of them, right? Especially with the whole thing with Loserus, because Togashi's narrowed it down to only a handful of, obvious things. Like, we knew we were going to get a chapter going over what Saradnik was going to do, right? In the latest chapter we just got. We knew we were going to see what Prince Benjamin did with all the other princes to be able to say, I have 4 remaining princes left. So we're catching up to 410 relatively quick, right? Do I think we're going to catch up by the time we get to the next batch? I hope so, because what else can happen in the next couple of minutes, right? Because after Saradnik is leaving, we see in chapter 410 that he's being held at gunpoint with all the guards. So, I don't know, maybe we'll see Saradnik escape to Tier 2 or to the Justice Bureau. I guess if Togashi wants to make a chapter about that, because we obviously have a few other princes we have to focus on. We have Mariam and the whole thing with Raihan, which I really hope we see that, because we get to see Bisky and Hanzo get into some action. That'll be cool. Zanglei and the Mafia, which I think they'll save that for the Phantom Troop stuff, even though the Mafia is kind of cooked right now, besides the overpowered Haley family. Loserus, like I said, we'll see what happens with him now that we got sort of confirmation that that is Fugetsu or Kacho. And Hulkenberg, keep your eyes out on him. He's gonna pop out anywhere. But anyways, guys, let me know down in the comments below, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we'll be getting the next batch relatively soon, right? Because he only has a handful of chapters he has to work on. And that third batch, we're not going to be greedy here. We're not those types of fans. Even if the story is so good right now, we're not going to say, Togashi, hurry up and give us more, right? We'll go through probably a little bit of a break, maybe a month or two, because I don't think, I hope it won't take him that long, right? Because he's trying to get these things out here, it's looking like. So, anyways, guys, it's been SJ Benj. Peace.